Okay, hello everyone. I'll try to briefly cover reference um, softwares. Basically, here I'm tapping on the chat for you. I'll be basically demonstrate to you a little bit of Zotero. The reason why I chose Zotero is because it's a free tool I've used during my PhD thesis a few years ago. There are obviously other options, some that I'm aware of. Some people use mainly desktop that is also I don't know if it's totally free. I don't remember. I used that a long time ago. And another one that is widely used is Endnote. I also tapped all of three in the chat. Endnote is definitely, I know it's paid. I used in the past, but it's not my favorite. I really like Zotero now. I think it's very easy to use. And that's why today I think I'm gonna focus a little bit on Zotero, just to give you an overview. But obviously you can download it and play more with it so you can learn more. I'm just trying to, okay. So Luisa just sent you a Word doc file, which is this file here. I think this file is, she's putting on the chat a link to download it. It's just a material that Maria Elena has prepared, in which shows you, gives a brief overview what is Zotero, also talks a little bit about Manly and Endnote that I just mentioned. And then there's a few steps on how you can download Zotero to your computer. And it's super easy and simple. It's basically you just go to the website zotero.org. I just want to show you how the website looks like. Zotero.org, and then here you have the option to do the download, and it's available for Mac and Windows, so you have to download the appropriate one and Linux as well. Once you have it, you're gonna install it. So if you follow this file we just sent to you, we took some screenshots and show you more or less how to use it. Um, you have downloaded this software that looks like this when it's the first time you are opening on your computer. Something that's also interesting, if you have the Chrome or even Firefox, I think Chrome is the one that works the best. You can also install Zotero in the Chrome, so you have an icon that you also can take references from the internet. I'm gonna show that in a second. Just going back to the beginning, basically with this reference software, you can actually, I don't know if someone is still doing manually, but you should never do your references manually. You should always use a reference software like this to help you with the references. So here there are the several steps on how to install. You can check that later at home. So what I did yesterday, I downloaded Zotero, and whenever you do, you have a software that looks like this, and you can come here and then you can add a book or a book section or a document or a journal article. So for example, in my computer, I have, for example, for the SSI, I create a folder of papers. Right now, these papers, they are all in my folder, but I want to put them in Zotero first. So you help me in making my reference list for the article that I'm writing, let's say. So if you come here and you can always say, I want to add a journal article, you can add this manually, which I do not recommend, or you can create your own library that you can take papers from your own computer, or you can take from the internet. So it's just been a while here. You can create folders. So for example, I want to create folders for my paper. Let's say I'm going to write dengue paper. So I'm going to just put dengue paper, and then I've created a folder. And to this folder, I can add papers to it. One way you can add import the papers from your computer, or you can take from the internet. So most of us, I expect, are aware of this database called the NCBI, where you have PubMed, that you can find several articles. And let's say I'm interested in an article about, let's say, dengue antibody dependent enhancement. Um, So I found this paper that I'm very interested in, and then here I can get the DOI from this paper, and then I can just copy here. And if I bring to Zotero, I'll be able, by clicking on this tool, I'll be able to put the DOI, or also you can use other parameters from that paper. And then if you add here, and then you click, and then you have all the information that you had online with the title of the article, all the list of authors, and the abstract as well, and the publication, the journal that was published. This was Science, the volume, issue, and all pages. So you make all the reference for you, and you have this now in your library, and that's going to be part of my dengue paper library. So I can add all my dengue papers that I want here on this folder, for example. And then you can create the groups. Later, I can also ask Stephen also how to show that once you create your library, for example, I'm creating my library of dengue papers and I can have all of them here. I can share my library with other people. So I have collaborators, I have other authors who work with me. I can share those too with other people as well. I'm just trying to find one quick thing. There's my publication. Sorry, just 1 second. Don't this is if you have other references. Okay, so basically, I was trying to create a quick library here. My journal article, that's not what I want. Sorry. So I'm gonna add a few other papers, just 1 or 2 more, just to show you a little library that I should have created in advance. So I have another one. This one, it had an issue. It did not identify the title of the paper, for example, but you can keep growing your list. So this one, let's say I have here in my library 2 papers that were successfully created, one for antibody-dependent enhancement and another one with SARS-CoV-2. And then whenever you add to your library all the papers that you're interested in, you can start writing your paper. For example, here I have the summary from a review that I worked on a few years ago. It has been published already. So it's just a review, and I just took a small fragment in which here I have my abstract, and here I start writing the introduction of my paper. And now I want to create my reference section. So I want to add, sorry, I want to add references here toward the end. So basically, I start citing my paper. So if you just start looking at it, after you install Zotero, Zotero also comes with a plugin that works in the Word. So here I have Word open, and if you see, I have a Zotero icon right here on the top as well. This did not exist before because it doesn't come with the Word, but after you install Zotero, you see this little icon with Zotero that's going to help you to add citations to your file. So for example, here I have written a little introduction for my review paper that this is from years ago. It's been published, as I mentioned, and I want to find the right place to add my reference, for example. So let's say mammalian cells use pattern recognition receptors to detect the presence of infectious microorganisms. These receptors are activated by pathogen-associated molecular patterns. And in the case of virus infection, PAMPs are often nucleic acid. So let's say I have a reference here for this, and then I can come here and add a citation for it. So you just click in this file, and then what is really nice is they have several options of citation styles from the American Chemical Society, Medical Association, etc. And also you can manage the styles. You can download more styles for the journal that you wanted to publish. So you already actually, because as we mentioned before, every journal you go, they might have different styles for citation, for reference, the way they wanted to present it. The software already comes with some of them. They are default, like for example you have for nature here, but if you need it for science, if you need it for self, if you need it for a different type of journal, you can download this format as well, and you can install and use Zotero. So let's say here I'm going to use nature. Then also you can select the language. The language could be English UK or United States. And here, just as an example, I'll add as a nature. And here is a search tool that I can search for the type of paper that I'm looking for. Let's say for that part of my introduction, I want to cite the paper that has the SARS-CoV-2 reference, which has nothing to do with my actual title, but just as an example. And here, while I was writing SARS-CoV-2, he already showed me what I have of SARS-CoV-2 in my library. And then I can go through a list and decide, okay, that's the paper that I want to cite. So I click on it, and then I press enter. And then Zotero now added this number 1 here that wasn't here before. So he added this way because that's the Nature journal format, which was the one that I selected. And then, for example, you realize that actually you're talking about PEMs as often nucleic acids, and you realize that you cited the wrong reference. Yeah, I cited a reference for SARS-CoV-2. That's not what I wanted. So I can always come back here. I can click on the number 1, and then I can edit again. And then I say, okay, this is the wrong reference, so I can delete it. And if I delete it, it should go away, which it did not, but it should go away. I can change this reference to something else, for example, antibody. And then when I click on antibody, I found this paper. That's probably the paper one I want to reference. And then I click here, and then it changed. The number 1 still remains, but it's a different paper now, and I can show you later. So, okay, if I delete that, and then I start. At this, I read my introduction, and at one point I decided to cite here paper number 1. I'm going to cite one of them. And then I said, okay. And then here, let's say I want to cite both papers because both papers are references for this, which is not true. I'm just giving an example. I can cite this one, but then I can also come here and then cite the other one. I want to, the one that has SARS-CoV-2. So I can cite both of them. And then you can see that automatically my antibody paper is my number 1. Because I cited that paper again, number 1 is being repeated here. And now I have a number 2, which is my SARS-CoV-2 paper. So after I go into this exercise, which is pretty simple, you just click here and you edit your citation. When you click in edit, for example, I have paper 1 and 2, and I realize there is a mistake. I think I don't want the paper. This one is not actually a reference for what I'm writing, and then I realize this mistake, and then I can delete it, and then I press enter, then the number 1 goes away, and I only have the number 2. So you can play with that. You can keep changing your references, and once you're done, you can click here at the end, and then you just add bibliography. And then here it goes, the 2 papers that I cited. I don't have to do that manually. I have my paper number 1, which is the antibody paper, and my paper number 2, which is my SARS-CoV-2 paper that I was referencing, which is now, let me find it again where it is. Here is my number 2, and my number 1 is here. And then later I'm continue editing. My supervisor made a lot of modifications, and then he said that I'm citing the wrong paper. I should not be citing the SARS-CoV-2 paper there, and this is my number 2, so I can go there, and I deleted my citation number 2, and that should update if you ask to add the references again. No, cancel. Then if I should do my references again. Oh, maybe it's been cited somewhere else. Yeah, but basically you can play with it and then you can always add it. Like I don't know right now why my number 2 is still popping up because I deleted. But that's more or less the exercise. That's how I do my references. And you can see I chose the nature format, but you can choose any other format that you want. And most importantly, you should never do this manually because these tools that can help you. I am very new with Zotero. I discovered Zotero some time ago as well as a free platform. So I'm also learning more about it. But it's very intuitive and it's easy to use if you spend a few minutes in front of it and start playing with the software. You're going to identify several ways of using it at your service and to help you. You can create these libraries, you can create several folders, you can create a total new group. Here is sending me to the website where I have to do a login and create my username. Maybe by creating this username, which I still don't have it, you'll be able also to share your library with other people as well. And I think that's what Stephen, I don't know if Stephen would like to make a quick demonstration of how you can share your folders with your collaborators. And also he has an actual library because I didn't have Zotero installed here, so he can probably show a little bit more if that's something.
Yeah, actually, I mean, that was great. I think I'll just make a few points if it's okay with you, Gregorio.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So one is I noticed in the chat and maybe the question and answer, people are asking about some of the other reference managers. And I don't know if Gregorio will agree, but I think we want to emphasize that the really critical thing is to use a reference manager, as Gregorio said. It's an incredibly useful tool that will make writing manuscripts much easier. And if you find that Endnote or Mendeley or one of the other less common reference managers works for you and your colleagues, then that's completely fine. Gregorio and I are just find that Zotero is easy to learn. And then frankly, another feature I like is that it's open source, which means that the code that underlies Zotero is available to anybody who wants to make improvements. So there is a community out there in the world of developers and programmers who come up with new improvements for Zotero, and it's not a commercial product. So to me, that's also important because Endnote and Mendeley both have free versions, but they are also explicitly commercial products that exist in order to make money. And I'm always a little concerned that they're going to come up with some requirement that's going to, cost, require a license that might be hundreds of US dollars per year. Mendeley is actually owned by Elsevier, which is a very large publishing company that is known for trying to squeeze as much money out of academic institutions as possible. So I'm just a little cautious for that. Okay, having said that, there are two features in addition to the organization and bibliography that I really like for Zotero. So I thought I would just show one. So I think you can all, Gregorio, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think everybody can see this window that has Zotero in it. Is that correct? With my cursor?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and so I have a main library, and then within that library, I have separate groups where I have articles on different topics. And then as Gregorio said, over time, I created several group libraries. So I have one called Blood Microbe, and then Gregorio and I actually belong to the same research group. And so I created another group library on COVID-19 and COVID-2. And by going on the web, as Gregorio described, I was able to share that with everybody else in the research group. So if they install Zotero, they can now see all the different references that I have collected on COVID-19. The other thing is that if you see these little arrows here, and when the article is brought into Zotero, the software attempts to bring in not just the title and bibliographic information for the article, but also the PDF. So if I turn this down, you can see it says full text PDF. And if I right click on this, I can rename the file from the metadata that it pulled in. And so now there's a PDF that has the author's name and the year of publication and the title. And you can actually set up rules for renaming these PDFs in other ways. And Zotero automatically creates a folder on your computer where it is storing all these PDFs. So I actually use this as a way to collect articles that I want to read on a particular topic. And if I simply double click on this now, let's see, sorry. And you can't see this because I put it's on a different screen, but hold on just a minute. I will just share this other screen. Okay, it brought up, when I double clicked, it brought up the article, right? That I had brought into Zotero. So for me, it's a great way to just collect and store all my PDFs. The other thing is that in the library, there's a place where you can add notes and tags. So one thing I sometimes do is I will be reading the PDF and I'll actually put in the notes section of the library my thoughts or comments on the article, because I just can't remember all the different articles I'm reading. So it's a way for me to store notes on things that I know are going to be important to me later, or that I want to remember, for instance, when I'm writing a manuscript. And then the other feature, and I apologize if Gregorio mentioned this, but the other thing I will show you is, sorry, I'm just looking for, actually, let me just do this. So, so right here, I have my Chrome browser, but this works well in other browsers too. And I can, for instance, go to PubMed, like, sorry. And I'm looking for articles, as Gregorio did. It's a little obnoxious, but I'll just look for myself so that I can find some things. And there's an article I want. And then, Gregorio, I apologize if you already mentioned this, but Zotero and Endnote and Mendeley allow you to install a plugin in your browser. And so I have a little plugin up here for Zotero, and all I have to do when I find an article I'm interested in is click that button, and you can see over here that it's sending it to my Zotero library. And so now, if I go back to my Zotero library, the article is already in my library right here. And now I can, I can add tags, I can add notes, I can rename the PDF. And so I find this an incredibly useful method when I'm planning out a study or planning out a paper. I just am browsing across the web for relevant articles. And I use that little button just to bring things into my library. And then there I can read the PDFs, I can make notes, I can organize them, I can share them with other individuals. So these reference managers sort of end up being my memory in my brain for writing articles.
Yeah, so basically you use to make your references, you use to share articles with collaborators. You can install other plugins and then put the reference for your for the journal you wanted to publish in. Like I gave an example with Nature, but there could be Science, there could be any other journals if it's available. You can create your folders. Basically, you just drop all the files to your Zotero, you drag and drop, and then it's already added in addition to these for the papers you already have downloaded on your computer. Is to just drag and drop. And the other way is like Stephen has shown that you can just use the icon on the page of PubMed, then you can get from the internet, also export to Zotero, and that makes the PDF available to you as well if you have access to it. So there are several things you can do. And the most important message is never do your references manually, because it's going to be very painful. And this way you can easily edit and adjust the reference if you have to change anything later. I think we are open for questions now and any other comments that someone else might have, I guess.
Thank you so much for this very informative demonstration. I think everyone who has ever started using those managers will just never go back to manually adding bibliography. So there are a few questions here about how to cite books and reports, for example, instead of articles. So both Loveline and Fernanda asked if you could demonstrate how to do that.
Do you have the demonstration for books? I don't have any books reference right now, but I imagine that it's as similar as adding any other PDFs with papers, with articles. I don't think there's difference. I don't think I've ever done with books, but basically, so it should be the same.
Gregorio went through the process of adding a citation to a manuscript, right? And you have to choose a citation style, which exists as an option in each of these reference manager softwares. And the citation style is something that is dictated by the journal that you are planning to submit your article to. And once you choose the style and you are inserting a reference, it actually recognizes whether it's a book or a book chapter or a journal article or a website, and it will configure the citation or the reference properly for that type. I don't think I have any.
I'm just testing. I bought in the past the Albert, the Self 5th edition. I have here the PDF in my computer. If I drag and drop, I don't know if it's very big. It's probably not a good demonstration right now. It's not really going. But I think if you drag and drop the reference, and then you'll be able to create a reference as you create for an article. This is probably just a very big file. Wait,
I guess one option is always to add manually. So if you select the option to add manually, you can go to the book and manually add all the information there. And as Stephen was mentioning before, the way it will show up will depend on the citation style you chose, but it's just you can do it the same way just by writing all the information that you need when you add manually.
Yeah, if you press here, you can add a book, and then as Luisa said, you can type the information as well once, and it'll be in your library forever. I was just wondering if there was a way, because usually you have the book physically, so the easiest way you come here and then you type and then you save the information. But I was just wondering if you have like the PDF for the book, and you could also add it as a paper. As you saw, I was able to add all these papers by dragging and dropping, but I don't know if the book's gonna go, oh, the book is not downloaded, that's why. It's in my iCloud. So now I'm downloading my book from my iCloud server. Okay, so that's probably why. And maybe it will go now. It's just too big. I don't think the computer really likes it. But yeah, here's now my Albert's 5th edition. So sorry, it wasn't going because it wasn't downloaded. It was in my iCloud and not in my computer. And then now that it's here, let's try. Let's see if I want to cite my book. Here's my review. I'm just pretending that this is part of the work. And then if I go to Zotero and add a reference, and then I type Albert, or maybe the title molecular biology cell, that's my book. And then I can enter it. And then if I go to my references, and I already updated. It's now Wilson Molecular Biology, the cell, the problems, Gaussian science. It's already there. So it worked. So also, if you have the PDF, you can drag and drop. If you don't have the PDF, as Luisa said, you can just come here and add the book. And then you can type all the information of the book, and then you're going to have it saved if you're typing a book. Sorry, it took a little bit of figuring out right now to show that to you.
There are a few questions also about this of dragging and dropping, and that works, as Gregory just showed, right? So you can drag a PDF you have in your computer and it will go instantaneously to the manager. Then there is a question from Hubert. Could we use 2 or more reference managers simultaneously integrated into the Word document?
I had once manually desktop and Endnote. There was a big confusion. My software, my Word was crashing all the time. I would not recommend it.
Yeah. Don't do it. So if you're writing a manuscript, it's likely you will have collaborators working with you. And there are ways that you can export from one reference manager to another, but just let your collaborators know or agree ahead of time which reference manager you're going to use. In my case, some of my collaborators use Endnote and I use Zotero. So when I'm sending them a manuscript, I export the bibliography from Zotero and then they can import it into Endnote. Or frankly, what usually happens is I just handle all the references and they just make comments on the Word document or the manuscript document itself.
Yeah.
All right, now you did such a good job talking about Zotero that people want to switch. So they are asking, how can I migrate my library from Endnote to Zotero?
There are plenty of instructions online. If you simply Google how to export or import from Endnote to Zotero, you will find lots of instructions.
Exactly. It should not be difficult. It's very intuitive. It's very easy. I never done it because every time I make my own library when I start a new software, but it should not be difficult. If you come here in File, you can import from a clipboard or import from somewhere else, and then you ask you, where do you want it to import from? It's by text, RIS, Zotero, RDF, etc. And then you'll probably be able to find a file in which you can import. For example, if you are in Zotero and you want to go to, let's say, Endnote, I guess my best guess is you can export your Zotero library first, and then you're going to create a Zotero file somewhere. Let me put it in my desktop so I can see it. And then I can probably write my Zotero library, and then I save, and you should be saved in my desktop somewhere if I could see my desktop. Okay, so here is my Zotero library. And then from this file, whenever I go to Endnote or whatever else, I can always just ask to import from somewhere. And then if I go to my desktop, I have my Zotero library, and that's what I'm going to import. And then I'm going to open, and it's going to copy all the files. So here I'm creating a new folder called my Zotero library they came from my previous Zotero in theory. So this is just a demonstration. I actually never done that, so I just did that in front of you, so you could, for the first time ever, so you can see that's very intuitive. And basically, if you want to export from one software to another, you first export, you create a file, and then you open the new software, and then you import from the older one. It should be very intuitive. It should not be difficult, I think. I hope I answer your question somehow.
So now we have a question about how to change the title of a PDF article into the correct one. So I guess if there was a, when you dragged PDF to your Zotero library and then it went wrong for some reason and you noticed that the title is not correct, how can you edit it?
I think that's what I did before. I added a paper from the internet and there was no title, right? Oh, I wish I could have that example again. But basically, let's say this is not the case, but let's say it came wrong, and then probably there'll be options to type. You can come here and add it manually, and then journal abbreviation, journal of immunology, and probably you can just add it manually. Like this paper, it came all correct, but maybe I identified an error by mistake, and then I realized the title is not right, and then I want to change the title. Antibody is correct. That's it. It changed the title. But in this case, I should not have done that because it was correct one. But you just click it and then you change it.
Thank you. And the last question is it possible in Zotero to create separate notes for a reference? This is in order to organize the arguments of your writing to see quickly each argument of the article and relate the reference to the same idea.
Interesting question. I don't know. Usually,
I think there's one notes field for each citation or article, right?
yeah.
So you can make those notes as long as you wish. You could write pages and pages of notes, but it's one field.
That's an interesting question. I never tried. That's actually good. Whenever I write a paper, I already have in mind what I'm going to cite because I read it before. But if you want to add notes, because that's going to be helpful, I just looked right now. And there, if you right click and then see add note, and then maybe you can write your note here, whatever you want to write, antibodies, etc. And then I have my notes. So whenever I talk about antibodies, I know this is my paper that I go to, for example. And here's the note. I never done that. I just did now. So it's,
and
again,
can you add another one now? If you click on that same one, because I think that was the question. So now if you right click on the article now, can you go to add note again, or it's going to show this one and you only have this field?
It's that one field. So you can add as many notes as you want, but all in the same field. It's not a separate note.
Yeah, maybe here you can add some more notes. For example, you can say the antibody reference that I want, it's on my figure 1 of this paper. So whenever I need to go back to my thoughts, I need to look figure 1. And if I want to see something else, I say in page 37, I will have the information about the methods I want to use. And then I will know in this paper where things are, and they'll be very easily and quick for me to look at. So if I double click, I can open the paper, and then I can go straight to my figure 1 and find the antibody information that I wanted, etc. So actually, yeah, that was a good idea. I never thought of using notes for Zotero. Thank you for the suggestion. I think I will do that in the future.